I'm Brian McNamara, and in this screencast, I'll be talking about using Visual Studio 2010 to edit F-sharp source code. This screencast will cover syntax highlighting, Intellisense, or auto-completion, error squiggles, type inference tooltips, various navigation features in Visual Studio, and commenting and uncommenting blocks of code. Let's get started. Syntax highlighting, fonts, colors, and sizes. Visual Studio 2010 provides automatic syntax highlighting of F-sharp code. Here I've got some F-sharp code in the editor, and we can see that, for example, identifiers are colored black, keywords are blue, strings are red, comments are green, and so forth. Of course, all of this is dynamic. If I were to comment out this line of code, it immediately turns green, and if I uncomment it, it goes back to the normal colors. These colors are configurable. If I go to the Tools Options menu, and then go to Environment, Fonts and Colors, this dialog lets me change the colors for the text editor. I could change the colors for identifiers, keywords, numbers, operators, etc. via this dialog. I'm using most of the default colors, but I changed my operator color to purple. If I want to change the default font size throughout Visual Studio, I can also do it through this dialog. Rather than change the font size, you can also use the zooming control found in the corner of the editor window. Here I've zoomed in to 200%. Intellisense, completion lists, parameter help, and XML documentation comments. Visual Studio provides automatic completion lists, known as Intellisense. If I type this dot, I get a completion list that shows me the methods, events, and properties that are available on this particular object. If I start typing a prefix, it moves me down to that location in the completion list. Just as I can do completion lists for instance variables, I can also find, for example, static methods on a particular class. Here I'm showing off the methods that are on the Canvas class. Once I have a unique prefix, I can complete that method name simply by pressing open parentheses or spacebar. So when I press space after set F, it types out set flow direction for me. This saves time. When I type in open parentheses, I get the parameter help for this method, a short description of the method, as well as documentation about its parameters. The examples I've shown so far show off the help that's available for particular methods inside the .NET framework. But I can also get help for methods in my own classes. Here the execute method is a method that I've defined in my own application, and it has the same help experience. The way that this is possible is through xml.comments. Those are the / comments seen here, right above the definition of the execute method. XML.comments allow particular markup tags to provide more information. For example, the param tag allows me to document individual parameters of the method. When I hover over a particular call to a method, we see that the text summary that appears here is just taken from the XML.comment. And of course, this is all live. If I were to delete this comment and replace it with just the word blah, then when I hover over execute, we see blah in the tooltip. Let's go ahead and undo that. I'm pressing Ctrl-Z to undo commands, but I could also press the undo button or press the redo button to redo commands. Squiggles for errors and warnings, and the error list window. Visual Studio provides interactive feedback when editing F-sharp code. If I make a mistake, I'll get error squiggles. The red squiggles you can see here under these identifiers. To get more information about the error, I can hover my mouse over it, and the error text appears as a tooltip. Alternatively, I can go to the error list window, which I can bring up via the View menu. Regardless of where I am inside my document, I can always double-click on an error in the error list window, and it will navigate me back to that particular error. Here I have a type error, since I've reordered the arguments. When I fix the error squiggles go away. You can get error squiggles for all kinds of compile errors. So for example, I have a parse error here if I leave off the parenthesis. Error squiggles are colored in red. I can also get squiggles for warnings. For example, down here I have a pattern match, and if I leave off the case of matching one of my particular commands, I'll get a blue squiggle here telling me about the incomplete pattern match, warning me that I may have left out the pen up case. Type inference tooltips. F# is a type-inferred language. This means that most type declarations are optional, and the compiler can infer types based on usage. Visual Studio helps out by providing tooltips that show the types. If you hover over an identifier, like poly, the first line of the tooltip will show its type. Here it says poly is a value of type polygon. We can use this to hover over any identifier in F# and see its type. Here cur_x is a mutable variable of type float. And here, the drawing is a value of type command list. This type has been inferred based on how the drawing is used further down in the program. Go to Definition, Navigation, and Search. Visual Studio provides a number of ways to help us find what we're looking for. Suppose I'm looking for the definition of cur_y. I can right-click on cur_y and say Go to Definition, or use the keyboard shortcut F12, and it will take me to where cur_y was declared. That's right, it's a mutable instance variable inside this class. Now suppose I want to go back to where I just was. I can use the Navigate Backward button, or the keyboard shortcut Control- to go back to where I just came from. Navigate backward and navigate forward keep a stack of recent places you've been, much like an undo-redo buffer. Suppose I want to search for some text in the file. If I hit Control-F, it will bring up the Find dialog. I can type in the text that I'm going to look for, and optionally specify the scope of my search. Here I'm happy to look in the current document. There's a number of other find options you can use as well. When I click on Find Next, it will highlight the next occurrence of it inside the file. I can also press F3 as an alternative to clicking Find Next to show the next find. Once you've found all the occurrences, you get a dialog that says you've reached the starting point of the search and circled through the file. In addition to that kind of search, you can also do an incremental search by pressing Control-I. With an incremental search, every key you press will be a new proportion of the prefix of what you're looking for. So if I press T, and then H, and then E, and then D, it will find the first occurrence of a word that starts with that prefix. If I hit instead Control-Shift-I, my incremental search will go upward rather than downward. Comment and uncomment blocks of code. The code I've been showing throughout this screencast implements a tiny subset of the Logo programming language. Logo is a small programming language used for drawing images on the screen. After my Logo implementation, I have a small bit of Logo code which draws a particular picture on the screen. When I run it, it does this and draws a smiley face. Say I don't want this circle around the outside of the smiley face, since it's a little off-center. I can find that bit of Logo code, highlight those lines, and comment it out using the Comment Out the Selected Lines button. Now if I rerun the code, it will draw the smiley face without the circle on the outside. If I decide I want it back, I can highlight those same lines and click the Uncomment button. notice that the tooltips on these buttons show the keyboard shortcuts. I can rerun the code, and now things are back as they were. You can find the code for this logo implementation on my blog. If you want to learn more Visual Studio keyboard shortcuts, I suggest getting a copy of the quick reference card. The easiest way to find it is to type Visual Studio 2010 key binding into your web search, and then go to this link, where you can download the key binding cards. They have reference cards for all the different Visual Studio languages, and you can download each one. The F-Sharp Quick Reference Card is a 2-page, 4-fold pamphlet that you can print out and keep by your desk. It contains a number of the most common keyboard shortcuts. As always, if you want to learn more about F-Sharp, you can visit my blog or the F-Sharp Developer Center at fsharp.net.